a great show coming up, everybody, and a great way to kick it off is with a guy that knows just about everything that there is to know about Central Florida sports. You've seen him before. You've heard him on radio and all of that fun stuff. What's his name? Roy Fuoco. So, Mr. Roy, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you was at the Hall of Fame and All Sports Awards back in June. So you've been a busy man.
Yeah, it was great that we were able to do that this year. It's always a great event, and I know people missed it last year when we couldn't do it because of COVID.
Yeah, a lot of folks wanted us to hold it, and we thought in the interest of our local community and so on, we take the conservative route and pulled it off this year with roughly 700 and some people in attendance. And a lot of surprises, but a lot of talent that was showcased throughout the course of the year, and we expected to win some awards.
Yeah. So it's now we're back for another year.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. Let's talk a little bit about football. Lake Gibson took down Lakeland, which you're sitting here 5 years ago. What? There's no way that's possible. It happened, 38-22 or something.
38-32, and it was on the one hand it wasn't as close because when Lake Gibson had a 2 or 3 touchdown lead for most of the game. Once they kind of got the lead, Lakeland scored the first drive of the second half. And then Jalen Glover rushes for like a 60-yard touchdown run, and it's it's up a 2-score game again. And then they got another touchdown on a drive that Lakeland stopped Lake Gibson 3 times on 3rd down, a penalty, the punt hit a Lakeland up back, and then another penalty. It kept those drives alive, and Lake Gibson goes ahead. So you think the game's over, and then Lakeland scores, gets 2 onside kicks. And it's the 1-score game with Lakeland having possession in the final, minute and having a chance to maybe pull off a dramatic comeback. And then the quarterback on 4th down gets tripped up before he gets the first down, and so that's the game. But it was an exciting game, and I'm not too sure what anybody can take out of it if they play in the playoffs, because certain things happen in that game that you just can't depend on. So, but the ending certainly lived up to the billing.
Yeah, that was a wild game. I had the fortunate of being there, seeing the game, and it was kind of that second touchdown with the the guy coming in motion and hits the Lakeland guy, and Lake Gibson picks it up, and boom, it's 14-0 before people could hardly sit down. But with that result, what does that mean for Lakeland? What does that mean for Lake Gibson moving forward? As their path towards the playoffs, how does that affect both teams?
Well, Lake Gibson's now in control of its destiny as far as winning the district title. They still have to play Bartow. Bartow's in the district, and it's tough. But if Lake Gibson wins out, they'll be the district champions. I'm guessing Lakeland and Bartow will make the playoffs. They don't now. The district runner-up doesn't automatically go like it used to be. They're back to using the power ratings, which came out for the first time, but they're probably 2 weeks too early because it's really inaccurate right now. But I would suspect that Lakeland and Bartow both make the playoffs, and then then they'll be seeded, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Lakeland and Lake Gibson play in the playoffs. They did back in like 05 and 06, 2 years in a row. They were in the same district, and Lakeland won the district both times, but they ended up meeting in the playoffs, and Lakeland won again both times. So, so they they'll probably have the home field advantage. Lake Gibson will have the home field advantage if that does happen. So now if Bartow pulls off an upset somewhere along the way, then it could be wide open.
Well, if you take, Roy, if you take a look at the county as a whole, what are the biggest surprises you see out there? Or have you seen, I should say?
Well, Arbondale coming back to be 3-0. That's a nice story. I'm going to see them tonight against Bartow. Their quarterback Zach Tanner threw for like 3,000 yards 2 years ago at Discovery. The first half of last year was just a mess. I think COVID really hurt the quarterbacks because they didn't have spring practice, they didn't have the summer to to have the workouts they normally do with their with their receivers, and doing a lot of 7-on-7 and that sort of stuff. And there was at least 3 quarterbacks last year that I expected to have better seasons who didn't, and I think you could point it to that. Now this year, Tanner is like 802 yards in 3 games, so he's on pace for like 2,500 yards. And so, Auburndale didn't look good in the spring against Ridge, but they missed time because of COVID. So I didn't really know what to expect from them. And so Auburndale is a good story right now. And then Fort Meade in the small school, they lost to a very good Champagnat Catholic. I don't know if I pronounced that right last week, but Fort Meade looks like they might be back to when they were a consistent, 1A power. So, we'll see how they play Victory tonight, and then Lakeland Christian next week. So, should be a couple of good tests for them.
Obviously, anybody who knows is familiar with Polk County football realizes the number of state championships has been produced throughout the county. With this year, I know we're 5 games in or so, not quite, but. What does that look like? Do you see any teams that are gearing up towards building the rest of this season and potentially being able to make a run?
Well, at the beginning of the year, we have a lot of sister papers in the Gannett chain, and all us high school writers made predictions for the year, and I said Lake Gibson's going to win the title. So I guess I can stand by that. They have some question marks still on defense that I'm kind of wondering about, but they certainly have the talent. If everybody stays healthy to make a run. Fort Meade will learn a little bit more about in the next couple of weeks to see if they're a legitimate shot. And Lakeland Christian the same thing because they're off to a nice start. I'm not too sure if they have a state championship run in them yet. We'll kind of find out a little bit more of them in the next couple of weeks. And same thing with Lake Wales. I mean, they got Lakeland handled them 2 weeks ago, but that wasn't surprising because there was just a big overmatch on the offensive and defensive lines. But in their own classification, I think Lake Wales will make some noise. State title, probably not, but I think they can make a deep playoff run.
Yeah. Obviously everybody, football on our brains. It is the middle of September, 3rd week in September. High school has other sports in the fall. Tell us what some of the standouts are right now.
Well, in cross country, the girls' side is pretty interesting. You have Crystal Gomez. She's running for Lake Wales this year. She had been at Frostproof, and this is like the 7th year I'm covering her because I've covered her since she's been in the 6th grade and always been a top runner. And she's a 2-time defending champion, and she's off to a strong start. And then Jenkins is strong with Kaylee Malik leading. She should be leading them. And then McKeel girls with Emma. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. Nales Torchio. She's leading a really good McKeel girls team. So the girls side is real competitive in cross country. Just about all the top boys runners graduated last year, except for maybe Isaac Morrison from McKeel, Landon Morales, who was Lake Wales' number 4 runner last year. He was expected to be their number 1 runner this year, but he's been hurt. So the boys is a little bit down this year in cross country, but like I said, the girls remains pretty strong. Like I said, Gomez she has a good chance of like a top 10 finish, which would be great for her.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. What else you got going on? In high school.
Next week we have the Ridge meet, which is the east side of the county, and then the Lakeland City meet for swimming.
Okay.
So we'll kind of get a look at how the swimmers are doing. The top swimmer back is, Mary Lee Hardman from Lake Wales, who won 2 state titles last year. They were the first state titles from a Polk County boy or girl swimmer since 2000 or 2001 when Ashley Schaefer won it for Lake Wales, and Ashley is Rod Schaefer's daughter. Yeah. She's back. She's just a sophomore. So we'll kind of get a look at her as far as how she's improved this year, and that's kind of be one of my big focuses on the next couple of weeks. Wow. And then Lakeland on the girls' side for swimming, I think is strong again. And then we get volleyball, which Winter Haven. There'll be a good brother-sister matchup in the district tournament probably in a couple of weeks when in Class 6A, Dylan Seacrest coaches Winter Haven, and his sister Dana coaches Lakeland, and those are probably the top 2 teams in the county, and they'll probably end up battling each other for the district championship in a couple of weeks. So
wow.
that'd be kind of interesting to watch, going forward.
Awesome.
Yeah. You look at high school sports and the plethora of sports, and then you multiply that times the number of teams and athletes and so on and so forth. So you got a huge job. I mean, that's got to be tough to follow.
Well, this year, like I said, with the boys cross country, all the top runners graduating, so you're kind of learning more. In football, that sort of happened with a lot of top playmakers graduating last year, except for Jalen Glover from Lake Gibson is back. So he should get reach 5,000 yards this week, and now it'll be the countdown to see if he could be I think the 4th runner to reach 6,000 yards. And if he reaches he should reach 1,000 yards this week too. So if he reaches 1,000 yards in 4 games, 2,000 yards, another 1,000 yards definitely is in the cards.